Welcome back to Beyond Wisdom, where we explore timeless truths for a more peaceful and meaningful life. Long before therapy sessions, personality tests, or scientific studies on human behavior, ancient civilizations were already asking a deeper question. What does it mean to truly know yourself? Though they lacked our modern tools, their insights were often more holistic, more connected to nature, community, and the soul. Today, we'll step back into their world to explore how people once understood the self, not as a bundle of problems to fix, but as something sacred to be remembered. In many ancient cultures, the self was not viewed as something separate from the world, but as a reflection of it. In Taoist philosophy, for instance, the individual is like a river, always changing, flowing, adapting to life's terrain. Laozi taught that the wise person aligns themselves with the Tao, or the Way, a natural order that flows through all things. Rather than analyzing emotions or dissecting thoughts, the ancient Taoists encouraged stillness and observation. The idea was not to find yourself, as we often say today, but to become empty enough to sense your place within the greater harmony. You weren't broken or lost, just out of rhythm with the larger song of life. And the solution was not inside your head, but in how gently you moved through the world. This view turns the modern idea of self-awareness on its head. Where we might journal, vent, or seek diagnoses, the ancients might have walked by a quiet stream, watched the wind move through the trees, and asked, "Where am I resisting life?" For them, nature was not just scenery. It was a teacher, a reminder that to know yourself was to feel your roots in something vast and ancient. The ancient Egyptians had a beautiful and complex view of the self. They believed every person carried within them multiple parts: the Kai, life force; the Ba, personality or soul; and the Ren, name, among others. But what's most striking is their idea of Ma'at, the principle of cosmic order and truth. To live well was to align yourself with Ma'at. It wasn't enough to know who you were. You had to act in accordance with truth, harmony, and balance. The self was not a personal project, but a sacred responsibility. In their famous judgment scene from the Book of the Dead, the heart of the deceased is weighed against a feather, the symbol of Ma'at. A heart heavy with lies, cruelty, or injustice would not pass into the afterlife. This wasn't punishment. It was a reflection. Yourself, in their eyes, became what you lived. Knowing yourself meant living rightly, in service, in humility, in truth. Today, in a world obsessed with self-image and performance, that ancient mirror reminds us, the real self cannot be crafted or curated, only lived. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome held a starkly different, yet equally powerful view. For the Stoics, the self was defined by one thing: your ability to choose your response. You are not your emotions, your past, or your reputation. You are the captain of your soul, the only thing truly under your control. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't write these words from a temple or study, but from battlefields and political crises. For the Stoics, life was unpredictable, often harsh. But that was not an excuse to fall apart. To know yourself was to know your reason, your values, your capacity to remain steady when everything else shook. They weren't interested in self-expression, but in self-mastery. not to suppress feelings, but to stay awake to what truly matters. Even today, this ancient voice reminds us the self is not what happens to you. It's how you hold yourself through it. Long before psychology mapped out stages of development, indigenous cultures across the world already understood the self as a thread in a much larger tapestry. Among many Native American traditions, for instance, the self was not a solitary being, but part of a living web, connected to ancestors, the land, and future generations. You were not just you. You were a continuation, a responsibility, a memory, and a promise. The Lakota, for example, speak of mitakuye oyasingji, a phrase meaning all my relations. It reflects a way of seeing the self not as an isolated identity, but as part of a sacred kinship with all beings. To know yourself was to feel your belonging, your place in the circle, your responsibility to speak and act with care, because your voice was not just your own. It echoed through the whole. This kind of self-awareness doesn't require introspection, but introspection, a turning outward to find meaning and connection. In a world where isolation and self-comparison often distort our inner life, this ancient view gently reminds us, you are not alone. You never were. In the spiritual traditions of India, particularly in Vedanta philosophy, the self, or more specifically, the ego self, was seen as a kind of illusion. The true self, called Atman, was believed to be identical with Brahman, the ultimate unchanging reality, beneath all appearances. What we call me, our thoughts, preferences, identities, are like waves on the surface of the ocean. Real, yes, but not the whole truth. The journey wasn't about building a stronger ego, but seeing through it. The ancient sages taught that suffering arises when we mistake the temporary for the eternal, the role for the actor. In the Upanishads, it says, "As a man in the arms of his beloved is not aware of what is without and what is within, so one in union with the self knows nothing else." In that moment, the boundaries between self and world dissolve, and what's left is peace, vast and still. This wisdom doesn't ask you to reject your story, your personality, or your experiences, only to stop clinging to them. To know yourself in this view is to remember what cannot be taken from you, something silent, aware, and untouched by the noise of the world. In ancient African philosophies, such as those from the Yoruba tradition, the self is born with a divine essence called Ori. It is your inner head, your spiritual intuition, your unique destiny. Unlike the modern view that identity is something we invent, Ori is something you honor through right action, prayer, humility, and alignment with your higher path. One's success in life was not judged by wealth or fame, but by whether one fulfilled the purpose their Ori carried from the spiritual realm. Even before birth, your soul was believed to choose its destiny. The challenge of life was not to chase desire, but to listen, to realign, to follow the quiet direction of the flame within. This view transforms the way we think about identity. It's not self-made, it's soul-guided, and it challenges us to ask not just, who am I, but am I walking in rhythm with the self I already am? Before psychology, before personality tests and mental health apps, the question of the self was not about optimization. It was about orientation. The ancients weren't trying to fix the self. They were trying to remember it, to live from it, to honor it in the way they walked, loved and served others. Whether they saw it as a reflection of nature, a divine spark, or an illusion to transcend, they shared one truth. You are not separate from the world. You are woven into it. Knowing yourself isn't a task. It's a way of being. What ancient idea of the self speaks most deeply to you, and why? I'd love to hear how you see yourself through these older, wiser eyes. Thanks for watching. If this video brought you value, subscribe to Beyond Wisdom. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and stay wise.